It's a March morning around the year 950, in the uplands of Norway, and you wake in the dark because a cow is bawling to be milked and the fire has died to embers. There are no windows in your longhouse, Thorstein. The only light is the red of the banked fire and a thin grey seep coming down through the smoke hole in the turf roof. You sleep on a raised earth bench along the wall, on a reindeer hide, still in your undyed wool tunic, because you undress for no one in a house this cold. The far third of your own longhouse is the byre, so your cattle stand penned in the same room as you, and their warm bodies are part of how you survive the night. So you kneel and blow the embers back to flame and feed the long hearth because your house has no chimney, only that roof hole, and the smoke will hang in a layer above your head all day. With the fire up, you go first to the cow, sit on a low stool in the dark of the byre, and milk by hand into a wooden pail, though most of that milk won't be a drink, but cheese, butter, and soured skyr. You are a bondi, a free man who holds his own land, and in Viking Norway, that is the whole point of your life, because land of your own means you answer to no lord for your bread. You aren't alone in the work, though. You own a thrall, an enslaved farmhand, and he's already up hauling water and mucking the byre, because the worst jobs are his by custom and by law. Breakfast comes late here, the day meal in mid-morning, not at dawn, because you Vikings eat only twice a day, so you go out to work first on an empty stomach. When you do break your fast, you eat it standing. Flat bread of barley baked on a hot flat stone, a lump of cheese, and buttermilk or thin ale, because water alone you don't quite trust. This is March, the hungry gap, so the barley from last autumn is running low in the storehouse, and you eye the bins, knowing every handful has to last until harvest. You take down your ard, a simple scratch plough made of wood with no mouldboard, because the thin upland soil up here won't take a heavy iron plough. The ard doesn't turn the soil over the way a real plough would. It only cuts a shallow groove, so you'll have to cross-plough the whole field twice, once each way, just to break it up. You yoke your 2 oxen to the ard, and if one goes lame, you take the handles and pull yourself, but either way your whole day is spent bent double behind that wooden point. Before any seed goes down, you spread dung from the winter's mucking over the infield, the near plot that gets manured every single year, while the far outfield gets nothing at all. Then you sow the barley and rye by hand, walking the field and casting seed from a bag at your hip, the oldest and plainest motion of the whole farming year. Every stone the winter frost has heaved up over the field you carry to the edge and lay on the low field wall, a wall your family has built, one Thor's stones at a time, over generations. You grow barley, rye, and a little oats, but no proper wheat this far north, so your bread stays a heavy, dark, flat bread, and fine white bread is something you've only ever heard of. Your real wealth, though, walks on 4 legs, cattle above all, because a man standing is counted in cows, and the very word for cattle is the same word you use for money. Most of the herd isn't even here now. In summer, the animals climb to the shieling, the high mountain pasture, but it's still March, so they're crammed into the byre, eating the last of the hay. You climb up and check the hay in the loft, and it's nearly gone. So if it runs out before the grass grows, you'll have to bleed a beast or slaughter one early. And every farm in the valley is doing the same sum. The sheep matter almost as much as the cattle, not so much for meat, but for their wool, because everything you and your whole household wear starts as fleece off their backs.
Indoors, your wife runs a whole second economy you don't touch, and she carries the keys to the storehouse on her belt, because those keys are the sign that she, not you, rules the food and the cloth. Cloth is such endless work that the women spin thread on a hand spindle constantly, walking, watching the fire, waiting, and a single sail for one ship can swallow years of a household spinning. In the corner stands the loom, upright against the wall, its warp threads pulled tight by rows of fired clay and stone weights that clack against each other when the weave is changed. By midday, your back is a line of fire from the ard, and you straighten up to eat only because the light is high overhead. Since there is no clock out here, the sky is the clock. You mend before you make out here. A cracked tool handle, a gap in the turf wall, a strap gone at the harness. Because the nearest smith is a long walk and iron is dear, so nothing is ever thrown away. Your knife never leaves you, because every free Viking, man or woman, carries a small, everyday knife for eating and working and cutting, and to be caught without one is to be barely dressed. You are also, quietly, a soldier when you must be, because a free bundi is expected to keep a spear and a shield and answer the levy if the call ever comes. So the farmer is also the army. The afternoon means the endless outfield work, cutting scrub and hauling timber and firewood, because that open long hearth burns all day and all night and eats wood without ever stopping. You cut turf as well, thick, heavy sods of grass and root, because the walls and the roof of your own house are built of it and have to be patched every year before they rot and let the rain through. The sea is never far, even up here, so dried cod hung stiff as boards on wooden racks, along with salted and soured food, fills your store, because nothing fresh survives a Norwegian winter. You keep a few pigs and some chickens close to the house, and the pigs half feed themselves on scraps and forest mast, which makes them the easiest meat you own. No money ever changes hands on your farm. When you owe a debt, you pay it in lengths of homespun wool cloth, measured out by the arm's length, and that cloth is your valley's true currency. As the light turns gray, you drive the cattle back inside and shut the byre tight, because wolves and bears are real up in these uplands, and a lost calf is lost wealth. The main meal, the night meal, comes now in the evening, cooked over that same central hearth in a carved soapstone pot or an iron cauldron hung on a chain from the roof. You eat porridge or a thick barley and meat stew from a wooden bowl with a horn spoon, tearing off flatbread, everyone dipping from whatever the fire has made. You drink ale you brewed yourself, and on an ordinary night like this, it's weak and thin, because you saved the stronger stuff for the feasts that mark the turning of the year. The whole household eats together in this one room, you and your wife and your children and the thrall, but not as equals, because the thrall eats only what he's given and owns nothing, not even himself. After dark, the work still isn't finished, so by firelight the women card and spin wool while the men twist rope and whittle, because idle hands in winter mean cold, ropeless, cloth-poor summers. You keep no church calendar. You hold to the old gods, Thor for the weather and the crops, and Freyr for the harvest, and your year turns on the great bloat feasts, not on Sundays. Someone in the firelight begins a story or an old verse, because the sagas and the poems live here in memory and in the mouth, not on any parchment, since almost no one in the valley can read. You do have letters of a kind, the runes, but you use them to scratch your ownership onto a tool or carve a short message, never to write down the long tales you're telling tonight.
As the fire is built up higher for warmth, the smoke thickens under the roof. Your eyes start to sting and you cough, because soot in your lungs is simply the price of a heated house. Before sleep, you rake the fire down to a low red glow so it can be woken again tomorrow, because starting fire from cold with flint and steel is slow, and no one wants that job at dawn. You climb back onto the earth bench and pull the wool blanket over you, the reindeer hide beneath you smelling of smoke and animal, your shoulders aching from the ard, the fire banked to a red glow, the cattle breathing in the dark at the far end of the same room. And you close your eyes, with the whole thing to do again at first light.
If you made it this far, hit like and follow. A new story every week.